Let's begin with the approval of these pipelines. 2 approved, 1 rejected. What do these decisions mean for Alberta?
Well, they're very good news for Alberta. Particularly the pipeline going west is so important for us to be able to access new markets, to get our product to the Asia Pacific, to establish a greater level of sort of economic independence separate from our primary market in the U.S. And generally speaking, to ensure that we increase the returns that all Canadians get from this critical resource. And so it's good news in terms of job creation. It's good news for attracting investment. It's certainly good news for the Alberta economy, which, as you know, has been struggling as a result of the significant and unprecedented drop in the price of commodities.
Still, as we know, these aren't a done deal yet. They aren't completed. There are talk of legal fights. First Nations groups, the Mayor of Vancouver, environmentalists, others speaking out and vowing to fight these, especially, of course, Kinder Morgan. What is your plan B if these projects don't go through as planned?
Well, you know, I think we're just going to focus on trying to move the ball forward on this one, because, you know, this I think is the most pragmatic choice. Kinder Morgan is a pipeline that's been in place for 50 years now, and to the extent that opposition to this pipeline was associated with this notion that building this pipeline means an increase in greenhouse gas emissions coming from the oil sands, Alberta's Climate Leadership Plan very clearly puts a cap on emissions coming from the oil sands. Even as we speak, this matter is being debated in the Alberta legislature as we pass the legislation to put that cap in place. And so the pipeline itself doesn't represent an increase in emissions. It does represent a more safe way of transport. It does represent a strategic choice to get a better return for our product. And when paired with the work of the federal government to put over $1 billion into coastal water safety initiatives, I think we're getting close to that situation where we can say to working families across Canada, you don't have to choose between your ability to provide security and comfort to your family with respect to a good job and your environmental future. We can move forward on both matters systematically and effectively, and that's what I think yesterday's decision represents.
Can it be wrapped up as neatly as that? Can Canada respect what it has signed on to in Paris and still continue to pump oil to the world through new pipelines?
The fact of the matter is that this pipeline is not going to impact the volume of resources coming out of the oil sands. It will come out either way. The plants have been built. It'll just be on rail, where it's much more dangerous, or it will be all going south, where we receive, you know, 2/3 of the price that we should. So it's not really about that. It's about improving our economic performance, about creating jobs, and about enhancing the safety of transporting the product that we already have and that people already have the ability to sell.
In your welcoming of the federal government's decision yesterday, you had a message for many interest groups, the people of Alberta, the people of Canada, the people of British Columbia. What would your message be to the First Nations people of Canada with these projects going ahead?
Well, I mean, I know that there are actually a number of First Nations people who are actually in support of these kinds of products, for instance, or with these kinds of projects. Even with respect to Kinder Morgan, well over 80% of the Indigenous communities along the route have signed very worthwhile and enriching community benefit agreements with the proponent of the project, because they see that there are economic benefits that can accrue to their communities as a result. We need to be respectful. We need to listen. We need to accommodate the concerns that they have. We need to continue to work with them. Absolutely, First Nations group have every right to be heard and accommodated on these matters, and the governments, all of us, need to continue to do that.
Just a little while ago on CBC News Network, we had Dr. David Suzuki speaking, addressing specifically the issue of jobs versus the environment versus natural resources. Let's just listen to what he had to say to our audience.
Look, Alberta is the energy center of Canada. Let's keep Alberta the energy center and invest massively in solar and wind farms in Alberta. Alberta can maintain that position.
There's no question, of course, that some of the people who voted for Justin Trudeau feel the same way he does. Some of the people who maybe voted for you feel the same way he does. What is your reaction to the fact that we should be pushing ahead further with renewables rather than investing in 30, 40-year infrastructure based on carbon?
Well, I think it's not an either or, and the fact of the matter is that we are actually investing massively in renewables in Alberta. That's what our climate leadership plan endorses. We're moving off of coal. 60% of Canada's coal is currently burned in Alberta, and our government, as part of our plan, has committed to phasing out of coal by 2030, and we've committed to ensuring that it is replaced in large part by renewable energy. So we are making that big investment, but you have to have something to invest with. So it's a question of how you make that transition justly while securing the sustainability of the economy and jobs. You can't simply throw families to the side of the curb and say, we're going to do this right now, and this generation of workers, you're our sacrifice. We're not going to do that. What we're going to do is we're going to work on both together. So we are making unprecedented moves in Alberta with respect to a transition to renewable energy. We're making great progress, and we're doing it at the same time that we're getting the greatest benefit that we can in the medium term from our non-renewable resources. So we're trying to do it smart, and I think we're achieving both objectives.
You will also need the help of someone like, say, Christy Clark. We've got Brad Wall signing on enthusiastically to this, but Christy Clark, BC Premier, have you spoken to her yet since this decision came down?
I haven't spoken with her directly. Our offices have been in touch with each other, and certainly have spoken to her before this decision came down. BC has its own process that it has to go through, and I believe that they are working on that, and I don't anticipate that the Premier is going to have I think she's going to be looking to let that process unfold in due course. So, you know, I'm hopeful that we'll be able to continue a good, strong working relationship and work through the issues that BC has, either the federal government, the provincial government, or the proponent themselves.
Premier Notley, I want to thank you for your time and walking through all our questions with us. Alberta Premier Rachel Notley speaking to us from Ottawa.